Asians and Hispanics regret voting for Donald Trump after talks of white reparations. But before we get started with this demonstration, let me read my copyright disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. What that means is that everything that you hear is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Everything that you hear is only the opinions of mine and others. Everything that you hear is allegedly. Salute to the chat. Salute to everybody. And I will get down there to the chat. So, already, some blacks, Asians, and Hispanics, as well as others that voted for Trump, are upset. He hasn't even took office yet. And there are some blacks that are regretting voting for Trump for different reasons. One of the reasons that has been brought to my attention is Trump is talking about white reparations. Let's just jump straight into it. And I will get back to the chat, but let's just jump right into this. And y'all let me know what y'all think about these white reparations. Is it true? Is it false?
Donald Trump is saying, white people, I am coming to you with reparations.
This country was founded on identity politics. There's never been an era that hasn't been defined by identity politics, by white identity politics, by white male identity. It was literally, identity politics is literally enshrined in the Constitution. Y'all said only white men, property owners, could vote. That's the original identity politics. And every era, every decade since then has been defined by that identity politics.
In fact, Cliff, here is Donald Trump touting identity politics today.
Yes.
And getting their money's worth. Furthermore, I will direct the Department of Justice to pursue federal civil rights cases against schools that continue to engage in racial discrimination and schools that persist in explicit unlawful discrimination under the guise of equity will not only have their endowments taxed, but through budget reconciliation, I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment. A portion of the seized funds will then be used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies that hurt our country so badly. Colleges have gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from hardworking taxpayers, and now we are going to get this anti-American insanity out of our institutions once and for all. We are going to have real education in America.
So,
all right, now let me just come to the chat. And I see y'all down there in the chat. Give me a minute to chop it up with y'all in the chat. I see y'all. Salute everybody. Now, it was brought to my attention that Trump is talking reparations for white people. Now, of course, I argued my case with a few of my subscribers. I said he didn't mention anything about reparations for white people. He didn't say words of Caucasians, Europeans, or white people are owed money. They said, Shank, you have to pay attention to the wordplay. They said it's all about the wordplay when he speak on this. They say, Shank, this is what they was meaning about Project 2025. They said this is all included in that 2025. Let me backtrack. Let me just backtrack for those that have just pulled up. Let me backtrack it, all right? Maybe y'all can help me understand. And we're going to go deeper. We're definitely going to go deeper. I'm going to go to some legal experts as well. But is he using fancy words to dress it up? I don't know right now. Okay, I'm just getting on this, so I don't know. So I'm asking a legitimate question from you all. After hearing this that I'm about to play, is it a form of reparations for white people? And I'll let y'all be the judge. Y'all let me know.
Defined by that identity politics.
And fair clip.
And we're going to go over identity politics. All right? Salute to the chat. I see y'all. We're going to go over this identity politics.
Here is Donald Trump touting identity politics today.
Yeah.
And they did, I believe, take out the identity politics in the Constitution years ago.
And getting their
Yes.
money's worth. Furthermore, I will direct the Department of Justice to pursue federal civil rights cases against schools that continue to engage in racial discrimination and schools that persist in explicit unlawful discrimination under the guise of equity will not only...
Now, he mentioned something about racial discrimination. How do y'all feel? Do y'all feel as though white people has been discriminated against because of their race? Let me know. Let me know.
have their endowments taxed, but through budget reconciliation, I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment. A portion of the seized funds will then be used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies that hurt our country so badly. Colleges have gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from hardworking taxpayers, and now we are going to get this anti-American insanity out of our institutions once and for all. We are going to have real education in America.
Shout out to Roland Martin, because this is coming from Roland Martin. Now, I'm going to let Roland Martin break it down, and then we're going to go into the identity politics. Salute, Jamie. Salute, Positive Vibes. Positive Vibes wouldn't be Positive Vibes if she didn't roast me. Salute, Big Pressure. Salute, Coffee Girl, Abdul, Stanford Mom, Juanita. Salute to the chat. Tommy from Still Swinging Podcast. I see everybody down there. Flat Power Guard. Salute, Kern. I see y'all. Abdul wouldn't be Abdul if he didn't roast me. Salute, Sharon. I see my roasters are down there in the chat. Salute to everybody, all right? Salute, Kotan. I see you, Kotan. Salute. Let's listen to what Roland Martin has to say about it, and then we're going to go into exactly the identity politics. Now, I've never heard of identity politics. Maybe it's because they did take it out of the Constitution. I don't know. Drop a one if you too, like me, have never heard of identity politics. Drop a 2 if you have heard of identity politics. Salute, Yolanda.
Donald Trump is saying, white people, I'm coming to you with reparations.
Exactly. And that was written into everything that he just said is a part of Project 2025.
Yep.
You know, the Project 2025 that he said he didn't know anything about. But before before the votes are even counted in this election, he's already rolling out the Project 2025 policies, and his transferring or transforming the Department of Justice and the Office of Civil Rights from something that investigates and deals with anti-Black racism, he is now redefining it as dealing with anti-white racism, anti-white discrimination. It doesn't exist, but that's the identity politics, and that's from Jim Crow through the Southern strategy, right, which was identity politics defined, to Ronald Reagan, to Pat Buchanan, all the way through this person. That's all they do is identity politics. In fact, even the economic anxiety argument is really another form of identity politics, because when they talk about the working class and economic anxiety, they're only talking about the white working class. But as if Black folks ain't working class. That's identity politics.
Do he have a point? What are y'all thoughts? I think he has a point now. Current says one race, human race. Coffee Girl says no. Okay. You said you heard of it before, Coffee Girl. I've never heard of it before. Can y'all hear me now? Can y'all hear me now? Drop a 1 if y'all can hear me. Every time we get into these type of demonstrations, the audio messes up. But that's neither here nor there. Positive Vibe says the Democratic Party needs Roland a toupee. He about to join Shank and the ball club. I'm just going to stop answering. I'm going to stop reading your comments, Positive Vibes, because I know it may start off as innocent, but I know by the time I finish reading Positive Vibes' comment, she's roasting me. All right, let's chop this up. Like I said, for me, it's been a long time, since I've been in school, public schools. It's been a long time since I've been in my studies. I used to study, on a regular basis. Coffee Girl says identity politics is basically if I voted for Jamie because she is black or she's a woman. Okay. Appreciate you for clearing that up, Coffee Girl. Appreciate you for clearing that up. Let's go to, give me a second, y'all. Give me a second. All right, I think I got it. All right. Salute, Current. Salute, everybody. How do y'all feel about hearing this? What are y'all thoughts on whether or not Donald Trump is trying to give reparations to white people? What are y'all thoughts? All right. Let's see what they have to say, y'all.
Hey all, I'm John Avalon, and this is Reality Check on the Extremist Beat. You hear a lot of talk about identity politics, the division of America into competing tribes where ethnic and racial identity becomes a person's primary definition. It's unhelpful to the American experiment, summed up in our traditional motto, E pluribus unum, out of many one. But what's ironic is that the most politically influential form of identity politics in America is white identity politics. Once you understand that, it explains a lot about our current political divisions. Because the rise of white identity politics and its attendant anxieties about traditional constituencies losing power run through almost every fault line of our fractured politics. This is, of course, rooted in America's original sin of slavery, which contradicted the fundamental promise of the Declaration of Independence.
So this was America's original sin. I'm sure most of us already knows, but for those that don't know, America's original sin was and still is slavery.
Every fault line of our fractured politics. This is, of course, rooted in America's original sin of slavery, which contradicted the fundamental promise of the Declaration of Independence.
So according to him, it contradicted the independence. Let me let it play, y'all.
It was expressed in decisions that counted black Americans as just 3/5 of a person. Now,
I gotta backtrack this, y'all, because I get so many
every fault
people,
of our
and I want y'all to listen carefully. I get so many people that always say, Shank, it's not about race. Shank, can we stop talking about race? And I always have to remind you, and I always have to bring you all back to, according to the Constitution of America, we were and are still considered 3/5 of a human.
fractured politics. This is, of course, rooted in America's original sin of slavery, which contradicted the fundamental promise of the Declaration of Independence. It was expressed in decisions that counted black Americans as just 3/5 of a person. After the Civil War, President Andrew Johnson vetoed an early civil rights bill, arguing that it would create special rights for former slaves, while ex-Confederate paramilitary groups from the KKK to white leagues sought to violently reassert white supremacy while suppressing black voting rights, leading to segregation for a second.
And this is a part of American history that we cannot brush up under the rug. I know many of you. I know many white people, many Caucasians, Europeans. I know many legal immigrants as well as illegal immigrants. I know you all feel that we should just let go. We should let go of slavery. We should let go of the race issues. Black people should just let go, forget, forgive, and move on. However, it's not that simple. You have to realize, you have to understand what slavery had done to us and what was taken from us. And then I know there are those that's going to say, but Shankrock, your own people enslaved y'all. Your own people sold y'all. Did they enslave us? Did they sell us? See, these are reality questions that has to be answered. And that's why you have to pay close attention to who's teaching you the lesson. And let me just come to you all before I get back into the demonstration. Let me just come to you all because this is an open platform. And there are not many platforms around like this. This is an open platform where everybody can come and voice their opinions. So if you would like to support the channel, and I don't like to beg, and I don't even consider myself begging. I'm just promoting the channel. But at the end of the day, we all know that it takes finances to keep anything running. So if you would like to support the channel, you could purchase a membership to the channel, a super sticker or a super chat, or you could just send as low as $1 to my Cash App. The Cash App is $ERICMCINT, because you're not going to get these kind of teachings just from any platforms. But let him continue speaking on the rise of white identity politics.
But white identity politics has a changing definition, because the definition of what it means to be white has changed in America. To a large extent, it is a social construct. In the 1920s, the second incarnation of the KKK rose to oppose not just blacks, but Catholics and Jews, as well as Southern European immigrants. This era also gave birth to strains of so-called scientific racism, captured in the pages of The Great Gatsby, where Tom Buchanan, the wealthy and dissolute husband of Daisy, talks about a book he's reading called The Rise of the Colored Empires, and says, civilization's going to pieces. The idea is that if we don't look out, the white race will be utterly submerged. It's all scientific stuff. It's been proved. It's up to us, who are the dominant race, to watch out, or those other races will have control of things. Sound familiar? Well, there have been repeated attempts to dress this anxiety up as something more refined, from constitutional debates about states' rights to Dixiecrat presidential campaigns to white citizens' councils that tried to rally massive resistance to desegregation. A former Grand Wizard of the KKK, David Duke, even tried to rebrand the National Association of White People before running for governor of Louisiana as a Republican in the early 1990s. Now, it's been said that history doesn't repeat. Sometimes it rhymes. So when I saw online calls for massive resistance to the election of Barack Obama in the fall of 2008, or interviewed Tea Party rally goers who brought up the year 2050 over and over again, which is when they estimated whites would become a minority in America, a sometimes subliminal form of white identity politics was hard at work. This anxiety also found expression in the early birtherism of Donald Trump and his anti-immigration policies, as well as in the infamous Unite the Right rally to stop the removal of Confederate statues in Charlottesville. Ellie Reeve was at the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, CNN Sarah Seidner has interviewed white nationalist leaders and slick purveyors of scientific racism. Both joining me for an in-depth talk about their reporting on white identity politics when we return.
All right, now let's chop it up, y'all. Let's chop it up. Because they're going to mention, you're going to hear them mention MEGA, Make America Great Again. Could it be, and remember, y'all, I'm just asking, okay? Could it be when Donald Trump make reference to Make America Great Again? Many of you says to me, because for me, I look at when he say Make America Great Again, I look at it being the morals, the values, and the principles, all right? Many of you say, Shank, what are you talking about? America was never great. America definitely wasn't great for black people. And you know, I always like to backtrack. Regardless if I agree with you at the time, I want everybody to know that I do hear what you all say and I do backtrack. So I said, well, many people don't feel the same way that I feel when Donald Trump say make America great again. Now, could it be, and I'm just asking, could it be that when he make reference to make America great again, could he just be speaking about making it great again for white people? Somebody, please let me know. Is that what Donald Trump is making reference to when he say make America great again? Zone says absolutely. Al says yes. Because now that I'm, learning and understanding the identity politics, because they did take it out of the Constitution now. They did. Coffee Girl says no. So we got two that is saying yes. We got one that's saying no. Because if let me see how I want to word this. Let me go back because I want to be careful of the choice of words that I use, and I just want to be careful on my wordplay. So let's see what else we can get out of this. Blue Ocean says no. Simon says, I voted for Jill Stein. Screw the major parties. They're both corrupt. All right, let's see what they're gonna say, y'all.
All right, Sarah, let's start with you. How do you see white identity politics influencing our national political debates?
It's become a very outsized influence. There is this sense among many voters who voted, for example, for Donald Trump, that white folks are becoming victims in this country. And you will hear people say we're becoming victims in our own country, and worrying what that is going to mean in the end, that you will lose some of your power and that the country will change in a way that you don't want to see it change.
How many white people, and let's be honest, y'all, let's be honest. This is a non-judgeable platform. We are honest over here. How many white people feel as though y'all have been losing power? Is it any white people? Is it any Europeans or Caucasians that feel that way? That when it comes to white people in America, over the years, you all have lost power. Talk to us.
That the power will not rest in the places where you think it should rest.
That's right. And of course, one of the many ironies of that is that the Republican Party was founded as an abolitionist party by Abraham Lincoln. So there's been a role reversal there, but that legacy of grievance politics, of what actually in the antebellum era running up the Civil War was called aggressive defensiveness, has really translated to a lot of the protests that have turned violent that we've seen to date. And Ellie, 4 years ago, you famously and brilliantly covered the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. With all those tributaries of the alt-right that came together there, to what extent do you think that fear of being a minority in America motivates these groups?
And I'll come back Coffee Girl says, my daughter just said the American citizens is who has lost power. Simon says, I don't care about power. I just want an equal playing field. Zone says, Belmont, this undermines constructive critical thinking. Coffee Girl says she's 15. Shout out to Coffee Girl. Coffee Girl says her daughter is 15. And she said that the American citizens is who has lost power. Simon says, give me a fair chance. That's all I asked for.
Oh, they explicitly said that to me. One of the leaders told me that he knew that once people of color were in power, they would treat white people as poorly as white people had treated people of color.
Stop right there. How many of y'all believe that once black people is in power, black people is going to treat white people as poorly as white people has and still is treating black people? I think this is an interesting question, and I think it's an interesting discussion because will black people in return do the same things that white people has been doing to black people if black people got into power? And is that what white people that's in power, is that their main concern? We would like to give black people power. We would like to put black people in these positions. However, if we give them power, if we put them in these positions, then they're only going to return to us what we did to them. How do y'all feel?
I mean, he just made it explicit. Like, you didn't have to read it.
Yeah, it's not that subtle when you come down to it. And yet, some folks try to dress it up with the sort of the veneer of scientific racism. This is sort of the leather elbow patch and tweed jacket variety of racism. And Sarah, you interviewed a guy named Jared Taylor, an Ivy League educated purveyor of white identity, white nationalist publications. I want to play a clip from where he lays out his worldview, and then get your response, and we'll go deeper on that. Let's hear it.
First of all, I completely reject the term white supremacy. I simply want the opportunity for my people of European origin, to be left alone so that we can pursue our own destiny.
Do you think recruitment is going well
Yes.
when it comes to young people?
I am constantly impressed by the number of young people who are completely wide awake on the subject of race, who are not bamboozled and intimidated by all of this nonsense of diversity being our strength.
I mean, there's a lot going on there, but you really do hear echoes of that in conversations that have been mainstream. Jared Taylor's a fringe figure, but this idea that diversity isn't a strength is something that you hear on right-wing talk TV increasingly. How do you read the rise of the Jared Taylors of the world to the something resembling respectability of their rhetoric?
They couldn't be happier. This has been the goal all along, to mainstream these messages, get them out into the public sphere and make them normal, to normalize these kinds of messages. And you heard him talk about diversity and that that's not a strength. And then you heard him say the word European. That messaging has been so important and has now made its way into the fabric of some very high-level politicians.
Congresswoman from Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene, says she's launching a new congressional caucus called America First. The online news site Punchbowl reports that a flyer circulating on Capitol Hill promoting the group calls for, quote, common respect for uniquely Anglo-Saxon political traditions.
She's trying to harken back to this idea that's very European-centric.
There are some mirrors there to the very language coming from these white nationalist figures who have been trying to get this in the mainstream forever, and they're finally doing it and have done it.
But sometimes the mask does slip, and it did in part of his conversation later with you. That's what we return.
Now, I'm address this comment. Somebody said that we need to be, or I need to be addressing black on black crime. This is not the demonstration for that. It's like going to the doctors and you have multiple things that's wrong with you, okay? And it's like you go to the doctor. You have a headache. You have pain in your leg. You have pain and other parts of your body. Well, what will the doctor do? The doctor first has to start to examine you, and he can't go to everything at one time that's wrong with you. He has to start one place at a time. So addressing the black on black crimes, that's not what this demonstration is about. That's for another demonstration. Let's stay on topic, okay? Let's don't bring in, and this is what always happens when black people, it's time for black people to be compensated. This is what happens when black people are the victim in a situation. All these other things start to get thrown out there by white people and other nationalities. If we're discussing anything that's pertaining to black people and the evolution of black people doing better, and black people being discriminated against, people want to throw, where's Black Lives Matter? People want to start trying to sidetrack the actual issue at hand. Once again, we're discussing white identity. We're discussing identity politics, and we're discussing whether or not Donald Trump is trying to give white people reparations. So we're not going to discuss black on black crime, not in this demonstration, all right? And I'm trying to be as respectful as I can to address that. This demonstration is not about us addressing black on black crime. I see y'all in the chat. Give me a minute to come down to the chat. I see y'all. I will, let me address this. Okay, let me address this. That's what we're trying to find out. The question that you're asking, can you tell me, can I tell you where he mentioned white reparations? That's what we're doing this demonstration about. That's what we're doing it about, because I'm trying to find out, because when he mentioned it, I didn't hear him say anything about giving reparations to white people. However, and see, you missed this. This was in the beginning of this demonstration. I covered this in the beginning of this demonstration, but that's what we're trying to find out now. When he make reference to this, matter of fact, let me just backtrack, all right? That way everybody is on point. I'll backtrack from the very beginning, all right? Just give me a minute. Bear with me and give me a minute, all right? Just give me a minute. All right, let's get back, y'all. And I do see everybody down there. Just give me a minute to salute y'all.
It is a pejorative term that means whatever you think is somehow immoral or wrong. I reject that idea.
Well, I think it's wrong that you think that someone like me is less intelligent just by my very nature of being black or brown.
Oh, come on. You are individual. You may be smarter than most white people around.
I know, but overall, you're saying that my race is less intelligent than yours.
And my race, on average, is less intelligent than Asians. Is that a hateful thing to say? It's where the science leads me, and I have to follow the data. I have no choice.
It's junk science. Just not believable. What Taylor seems to fear the most, the day people of color outnumber whites in America.
If whites do nothing, they will be reduced to a minority in which their culture is a sideshow in which they themselves will be considered a despised group who did everything bad that all other groups. You personally have much experience that.
All right, let's stay right there. Now, Blue Ocean says that white guy isn't wrong. How many of you all feel that this white guy is wrong? How many of y'all agree with him? How many of y'all agree with him?
You'd be surprised.
Sarah, what were you thinking then when he said that?
Two things. One, the audacity of someone in his position to question what I have experienced in my life as a woman of mixed race. I thought that was really telling. I thought that told the audience something about where his mind is and where his power structure is and how he saw me. But what you really hear is fear. What you really hear at the end of that is that he is afraid that he is going to be treated as a white person the same way that blacks have been treated in this country. And so he acknowledges in a subtle way that blacks have been treated poorly, and he's terrified of it being reversed onto him. Yeah. And I think that's really, really telling, and why there are so many people, whether they are white nationalists or whether they are not, are worried about the, quote, browning of America.
And one of the many things I thought was so telling is that anxiety, which it runs through, you see it even in late stage Civil War, where people talk about how, if the South loses the war, they'll be subjected to tyranny and slavery at the hands of not only the North, but former slaves, is what he also said was like cut and pasted out of Tom Buchanan's comments in The Great Gatsby. You know, the idea that the white race has to defend itself or it will be overrun. It's just the same song over and over, no matter how you try to dress it up.
Let me ask y'all this, and I need everybody to be honest. As black people, if we, and I can even speak individually, as a black person, if you was given power, if you was given a position, authority over white people or a white person, would you inflict harsh conditions? Would you discriminate against the white person just based off of how white people treated black people? As a black person, would you treat white people poorly just because of what was done to black people by white people? Texas Repost says they already do. Al McAllister says absolutely no. Salute, Marty. I see you, Marty. How do y'all feel? And for the white people that's down there, do y'all feel as though white people are losing power? Salute, Big Pressure. Do y'all feel as though by the year 2050, white people will be extinct? Big Pressure says this country is more divided than ever. And it's not so much black versus white, but more about red versus blue. Some of this is scared tactics that comes from losing politicians. Zone says no, because I already have been put in charge many times. I think we refuse to consider our individual leadership responsibility. Tommy from Still Swinging says, hit the like button. Juanita says, I wouldn't treat them nothing different than what I have been doing. Face Mob says, yes, yes, yes.
But there are really insidious attempts, a lot more persuasive than Jared Taylor, at mainstreaming this idea and rebranding it.
Can I just mention something about one of the slogans used in politics that really worked and that caught on like wildfire, one used by former President Donald Trump. And everyone knows it around the world now. And the slogan is, Make America Great Again.
Yeah.
And what does that talk about? What does that speak to? It speaks to the anxieties of the present by looking at the past, because again, signifies where we used to be. And where did we used to be? Well, if you look in the past, white folks dominated pretty much all aspects of politics and society and power, and black folks and people of color didn't. And so that really, if anything, sort of spoke to people. It was that saying to make things the same again, like they were when times were easier.
It's the appeal to a mythic past, the lost cause mythology, which we see over and over again. And Elliot, you were at the insurrectionist attack on the Capitol. To what extent did you see the trappings, the iconography, the rhetoric of white identity politics explode at that moment in that place?
Well, I mean, that's a very interesting question because there were a few people there who were explicit white supremacists. Like a guy had an Auschwitz t-shirt.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the people there do not think that they're racist. Even as they wanted to get rid of the votes of people in Detroit, Atlanta, heavily black areas. Like they would tell themselves that they are not racist. And
So she's saying many of the white people that were at that Capitol riot, January the 6th, many of them feels as though that they weren't or they aren't racist. As she said, however, they wanted to get rid of those votes that was coming out of Detroit. And she said, you know that the majority of those votes that was coming from Detroit was from black people. What do y'all think of that?
that is why that part of the movement is much more popular and gets much more numbers than the alt-right ever could. Because the alt-right was pro-Nazi. Like Americans watch movies about beating up Nazis, killing Nazis, there's books about killing Nazis, like the Nazis are the bad guys. So you're never going to have a mass movement where you're supposed to accept Nazis as good. That's why the Stop the Steal rally it's much more subtle. We're just trying to get rid of votes that happen to be black people's votes, right? Like I talked to many people there, like they would bring up race on their own without me ever asking about it. They'd say, like, I'm not racist. They like really wanted me to know that, even as they were taking actions to undo an election and undo the votes of black people.
This is unacceptable. We don't think. Words matter. And as Ellie points out, and Sarah does as well, many modern white nationalists really resent being called racist. It makes sense to the extent that it tends to bring any meaningful discussion to a screaming halt. But our conversation on the rise of white identity politics went long and dove well beneath the surface. And so we split this important conversation in two. In part two, we'll look at how white nationalists have tried to modernize and use memes to recruit while trying to sidestep the racism that remains core to their worldview.
Let me ask y'all, are white nationalists racist? Do y'all feel as though white nationalists are racist? I'm not going to hold y'all that much longer, but I'm going to go back to Donald Trump and the comments that he made that many people, blacks, Asians, and Hispanics, many people feel as though that's his way of giving reparations to white people. No, he did not say it. Not one time did he say reparations for white people, but many blacks, Hispanics, and Asians and other non-whites feel as though he's talking about giving reparations to white people. Let me let it run and y'all decide and let me know. And remember, y'all, this is Roland Martin. So, let me make sure.
People power movement, a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word. We risk complete covering up investing black-owned media.
My bad, y'all.
Donald Trump is saying, white people, I'm coming to you with reparations.
This country was founded on identity politics. There's never been an era that hasn't been defined by identity politics, by white identity politics, by white male identity. It was literally, identity politics is literally enshrined in the Constitution. Y'all said only white men, property owners, could vote. That's the original identity politics. And every era, every decade since then has been defined by that identity politics.
In fact,
Did y'all hear that? Let me backtrack. Did y'all hear what he said as far as in the beginning? as far as those that were allowed to vote.
Identity politics is literally enshrined in the Constitution. Y'all said only white men, property owners, could vote. That's the original identity politics. And every era, every decade since then has been defined by that identity politics.
In fact, Cliff, here is Donald Trump touting identity politics today.
Yes.
And getting their
Yes.
money's worth. Furthermore, I will direct the Department of Justice to pursue federal civil rights cases against schools that continue to engage in racial discrimination and schools that persist in explicit unlawful discrimination under the guise of equity will not only have their endowments taxed, but through budget reconciliation, I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment. A portion of the seized funds will then be used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies that hurt our country so badly. Colleges have gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from hardworking taxpayers, and now we are going to get this anti-American insanity out of our institutions once and for all. We are going to have real education in America.
So,
Before I let Roland elaborate on it, I didn't get anything out of that he was alluding to reparations for white people. Maybe y'all on the replay gang and maybe y'all in the chat, maybe y'all can help me understand. I still couldn't detect anything that Donald Trump was making reference to giving white people reparations. Do y'all agree or do y'all disagree? Let me let Roland and the other brother break it down.
Donald Trump is saying, white people, I'm coming to you with reparations.
Exactly. And that was written into everything that he just said is a part of Project 2025.
Yep.
You know, the Project 2025 that he said he didn't know anything about. But before before the votes are even counted in this election, he's already rolling out the Project 2025 policies, and his transferring or transforming the Department of Justice and the Office of Civil Rights from something that investigates and deals with anti-black racism, he is now redefining it as dealing with anti-white racism, anti-white discrimination. It doesn't exist, but that's the identity politics. And that's from Jim Crow through the Southern strategy, right, which was identity politics defined, to Ronald Reagan, to Pat Buchanan, all the way through this person. That's all they do is identity politics. In fact, even the economic anxiety argument is really another form of identity politics, because when they talk about the working class and economic anxiety, they're only talking about the white working class. But as if black folks ain't working class. That's identity politics.
What are y'all thoughts? I'll let y'all be the judge of that. Identity politics. They removed it out of the Constitution. Hopefully, I can do a part 2 on this. I'm not sure, but hopefully I could do a part 2 where as though I can have an open panel. And that way you all can join me on the panel and you all can, give y'all perspective. I'm not sure whether or not I will do a part 2. I'm still doing some more homework on this as well. So I'm not sure, but maybe in the future I can do a part 2, whereas though some of y'all can join me on the panel and we can discuss this. So how do y'all feel? Do you feel the identity politics that Donald Trump making reference to, do you feel as though that's his way of giving reparations to white people? Salute everybody. I appreciate everybody for pulling up. Salute, and I'll see y'all on the next demonstration.